What up, guys and girls? Another brand new video coming at you today. We are here, as you can see, for a preview of this season of AOR Oceania. It's season number 5 for the F1 top tier. I did this back in season number 3 before the season started back then. I didn't do one, obviously, season 4 because obviously it was a shortened season, probably more to coincide with the F1 2019 release. But I thought I'd bring this one back for this season, considering it's going to be a full-on calendar for the 21 races of Apex Online Racing. I'll probably show you a shot there of the calendar on your screen. So obviously, like I said, doing a full 21 race calendar. There is the odd a few for break weeks. Gaps for break weeks, I should say. There's one after the Monaco Grand Prix. I think there's another couple sort of midway through the season. That's for the real-life Mexican and USA Grand Prix. It's a bit hard to say that, considering it's been the opposite way the last couple of years. But yeah, that's mainly to do with the European side of us, so the Apex Online Racing. So, yeah, I mean, that's sort of out of our hands, that one, but nothing we can do. Probably an ideal for some of us, but anyway. And, yeah, just run all the way till about early February, I think it is, for the final round in Abu Dhabi. So, what I'm going to do, obviously, is going to go through every single team and all the drivers that are taking part in this season and what team they're running for. I'll give you a bit of odd stats. Probably, I think this is mainly majority of last season. I may go back to maybe a couple of seasons ago, or maybe even some from past. But anyway, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Let's kick it off with the Mercedes AMG F1 team, and how good does this car look for the 2019 season? It's regular drivers. Of course, it's got the 5-time world champ Lewis Hamilton and the man who loves to eat porridge quite a bit, although probably not quite a lot recently, but it looks of things, Valtteri Bottas. But season 5 of this for AOR Oceania, it's got a couple of new drivers. This time last season, it was HO56 and Harry Ryan 19 driving the cars. This season, all new, different lineup. We'll start here with car number 38, which is deth. His season 4 stats finished up in position number 6 overall in the championship, but obviously I think he got 4th pick in the car selection for this season. Obviously, with a few guys who took part last season not taking part this season, but yeah, P6 overall in the Drivers' Championship, so not too bad. 61 points for him overall. Did get a pole position here at the British Grand Prix this time last season. His best race overall finish was a 4th last season at Brazil, actually in the final race of the season, I might add. But also, not a stat, scored in pretty much majority of the races last season. Of course, there was only 10, but the only race he didn't score points was Austria, where he DNF'd out of that race after it was a bit of a, well, you could say the wet track back then was definitely not wet, and it was still good enough for dry tyres. But and obviously he teamed up last season with Is That Matt in the Williams, and took them obviously to position number 6 in the Constructors' Championship. So this is quite a big upgrade for deth. But I think he's had quite a few. He did obviously get quite a few top 5s, I think, last season. So I'm not sure whether he can maybe push a little bit more this season, and maybe the podium is not out of reach, but it'll be interesting to see how he goes this season. He'll have a brand new teammate for this season of AOR Oceania in the form of Top Banter 07. Now, of course, Top Banter took part in the F1 tier last season after obviously taking part in season 3 in F2. And did pretty decently, I must say. Finished up in position 8 in the Drivers' Championship. I can't remember exactly the points tally that he got there, but well, it was definitely better than me, put it that way. Obviously, best race result, he did get a P5 in Belgium, albeit he got that back from obviously getting a penalty removed from back then, which to this day probably still annoyed about, but anyway, you can't do nothing about that. But scored in 8 of the races out of the 10 races last season. His worst result, again, Austria, just like his teammate deth, with obviously finishing outside the points and position number 12. But did fairly decently well, actually, for last season. Did Toppy B, as he's affectionately known as. Took, obviously, Force India to position number 5 with a little bit of help from Big Chungus 99, or Warden, if you well known to AOR the last few seasons. But obviously, definitely a big upgrade this year. Obviously, considering he was in, well, it's Force India now, affectionately known as Racing Point. But Top EB obviously managing to get quite a few top 10 results. I think he only had like the one top 5 finish overall. So he could probably maybe push for maybe a few more top 5 positions. Bit hard to tell really with some of these drivers because we don't know. Well, I don't know personally. Some of them, like, whether they've had a lot more experience on this game, whether they like it or they hate it. So it's just a bit of a case of an unknown, really, for Top Banter and for Death Pro as well. Second off the cab rank is, of course, Scuderia Ferrari, and how good does this red rocket look, by the way, I must say. Driven in real life by the 4-time world champ Sebastian Vettel, who I swear is nearly close to winning another championship with this team. And of course, got the young gun on board this year with Charles Leclerc, obviously taking a few poles, but yet to take his first race win, and hopefully it's not too far away. But of course, this time in Season 4, there was at least 3 drivers that drove for this team last season in AOR Oceania. We had DRC Jared, who took part, I think, in the first 3-4 races, I think it was, before he got blacklisted. I'm not going to delve into that one, but of course he can't take part this season because he is blacklisted. Hello to DRC Jared if you're actually watching this, but probably highly unlikely. That's the second, obviously, of course, Alan Hugo, who, of course, another Kiwi making his way up the ranks. And, of course, I think he took the SRL Championship for season number 4. But the man on screen that you're seeing here in car number 97 is back again for another season of AOR Oceania. Even though technically season 4 was supposed to be a little bit of a rest break for him, did take part in the final 5 races of the championship last season, and well, I must say, even though it was supposed to be the break season for him, did decently well to get into position number 5 of the championship. Of course, he is a 3-time AOR Oceania F1 champion. He obviously took the first 3 seasons. Well, of course, season 3, we all know that was quite a hectic battle between him and Greek Master, and maybe probably didn't end the way it should have, but we won't dive into that one. But last season, he took 1 victory. He obviously, right here actually, at the Italian Grand Prix, and in a wet to dry sort of race, I think from memory it was. Took another 2 podiums and ended up on 79 points overall. But also another fun fact is he helped Ferrari to take P1 in the Constructors' Championship last season as well with the other guys that I mentioned. His worst race last season was a P7 in Brazil, when I think he was sort of on track to possibly win that race, had it not been for the little issues with VFens. That's a bit at the end there, but again, won't dive into that one. But I think this guy is probably the championship, what's the wording? Is a threat, easily probably the favourite to take out, that's the word I'm trying to think of, to take out this year's Season 5 AOR Oceania champion. But maybe an odd guy or two that may take the fight soon, but we'll have to wait and see. His teammate for this season is someone I know that has pretty much driven a Haas car in pretty much nearly majority of the AOR leagues that he's taken part in, but he's decided to ditch the Haas team for this season. Probably mainly maybe to do with their weird sponsorship deal with Rich Energy. But anyway, he's now decided to jump into the Red Rocket in car number 69. That is that Laggy person. Now, of course, Laggy, of course, I teamed up with back in season 3. Obviously, we did very well that season. But finished up actually position 4 in season 4 in the Drivers' Championship. 99 points. Just couldn't quite break into that 100-point barrier. It was probably because his worst race that season was position 8 back in Brazil, and I pretty much probably maybe stole that a couple of points off him that race. That probably would have got him over the century mark. But overall, he did get 1 podium, which was a 3rd place at Britain. He also got a pole in Germany, which of course he did take that away from me as well. But pretty much a guy that scored points in every single race, so he is quite consistent in the points. It was quite a contrast compared to what happened in season 3, but probably something he will want to forget. But I don't know. I could see probably Laggy maybe fighting for maybe a few podiums. I think he's come close maybe to a race win in another league. So maybe don't count out this guy out of the race winners for this season. But I think maybe as well that these guys could possibly be a force in the Constructors' Championship. Third team we're going to have a look at is, of course, Aston Martin Red Bull Racing. Of course, made the big move across to Honda engines for this season. Of course, it's worked well, hasn't it? Well, for one half of it, with Max Verstappen taking a couple of race wins, and the same can't be said for his teammate Pierre Gasly, although, as I record this, I think he's actually been replaced by Alex Albon for the rest of this season. But brand new lineup as well for this team this season for the Red Bulls. It's had a fair share of ups and downs last season with in the likes of Prez, BC, and I think RBR took part in a few races in this team as well. But the team I first driver looking at is actually my former teammate from last season. Don't be alarmed, that's just a different gamer tag that you're seeing at the top of your screen. It's actually Brazuca 82 for this season, although he was formerly known as Plinier Montero last season. And again, I apologise if I got the pronunciation incorrect. But he's back again this season, of course, making the big jump from the Toro Rosso to the Red Bull for this season. Obviously, he took part last season, finished position number 14th in the Drivers' Championship. Got 2 solitary points, and actually, best ever result was actually at his home event because he is from Brazil. Actually finished up, got position 9 in Brazil. Albeit there might have been a few drivers that probably were a bit unlucky that race. But also, we took, obviously with myself, we took Toro Rosso to position 7 in the Drivers' Championship. Also DNF for 3 times in season number 4. But don't really know what to think here for my former teammate. I'd like to see him maybe fight for a few more top 10 finishes this season. It's probably going to be a bit tough with the competition this year, but yeah, don't be surprised maybe if you see him pop up inside the top 10 throughout this season. He'll have a brand new teammate alongside him this season in the form of Knams. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, who is a new / sort of returning driver, you could say. If viewers from like the first couple of, the first season of AOR Oceania for F1 tier mainly, you might remember him as Proza, or there might have been various other gamer tags that he made up along the first couple of seasons. Obviously, he was blacklisted back then for quite a few seasons actually, but I've allowed him back for this season to be in the big time, and yeah, don't really know actually what to think of. I did see, if you remember all the way back to like former leagues, like I'm going to use Aussie Sim Racing as an example here. This guy was pretty quick back then in those leagues, but sort of dropped away, I think, a little bit in the F1 2017 realms a little bit, but yeah, not sure. He could be one that maybe maybe a few podiums, maybe a few race wins, might even take the challenge to for the fight to the title with New Zealand Ryan this season. It'll be interesting to see. Probably one guy to keep your eye on. Fourth team we're having a look at here is the black and gold look of Haas F1 team. Whether they're sponsored by Rich Energy or Lightning Volt, I have no clue these days. But normal drivers, Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. I think they've had a bit of an up and down season this year for them, but some have had good qualifying results, some have better race results. But anyway, it has a brand new driver for this season in the form of xCNKI. Hopefully they've got that gamer tag correct, but is a brand new driver. Originally, he was slated to be in the F2 class, but he did message me saying that he wanted to take part in the F1, albeit maybe he might be a little bit slow, but anyway, it's really, I don't have much to say on one of the brand new guys that we got in this competition, but hopefully he has a decent season and maybe gets himself into the points. You never know. We've reached the halfway point now of the preview as we have a look now at an iconic team that is McLaren, and they're having a pretty decent season in real life. Obviously got the drivers Carlos Sainz, the great old quick Spaniard, and quick British rookie as well, and Lando Norris, who have had fairly decent seasons, both of them. So can't really complain. I think they're maybe up there or thereabouts in the constructors as well. But this season, of course, this time last season, the drivers were both Conrod Str8 and iKaiowas. They're now moved to a different team. So the drivers driving it this season will start off with car number 21. That is Masterbezerk, who, of course, taking pretty much all part in all the 4 seasons so far, I should say, and is now taking part in his 5th season in AOR Oceania. Finished up in position number 9 in the Drivers' Championship, not Constructors, what am I thinking? Just fractionally beating me on 26 points, but best overall finish overall in the season was a P5 in Austria. That quite a 3 DNFs throughout the whole season. Maybe I think 1 DNF may be classified as a disconnect, but it's still it's around there anyway. But it's hard to believe actually. I'm still surprised how he's got position 9 in the championship, considering he only scored in 4 races. So he'd probably maybe say the same thing as well. But he did take what was known as Alfa Romeo Sauber, of course, with a bit of help with V-Fens, taking them to 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship. But Berserk, I just really hope that he has a decent season this year, doesn't get caught up in any kerfuffles and has quite a few decent points hauls. We'd all like to see him maybe get back up to the podium. Obviously, it did take a little bit of time transitioning from the pad to the wheel, but hopefully he gets back into his normal rhythm and maybe fights for podiums, maybe the odd pole and even an odd race win. You never know. He'll also have a brand new teammate for this season and actually a brand new driver to this league in the form of KMP4. Now, if many of the viewers actually watch Team Martik's videos from back in the day, you'll probably recognise this name quite a bit because did drive in what is now the defunct Aussie Sim Racing series, and yeah, he's got some pretty decent race pace, albeit maybe probably hasn't driven the game for quite a while. Probably, maybe, I don't think he's maybe driven. He may have driven it like offline, but obviously didn't take part online stuff, and probably more focuses on the real life driving these days. But back at it again, maybe for another crack. Yeah, I mean, he has shown the decent result from what I've seen, but you know, whether he could take that. It's a bit hard to tell what we could expect from for KMP4 this season. He'd probably be maybe fighting for a few top 10s maybe throughout this season. The Pink Panther of Racing Point, what was formerly known as Force India, is our 6th team we're having a look at here. This changed quite a bit, maybe this pink livery, but obviously he's got his normal driver. His regular life is Sergio Perez, and of course the young Canadian in Lance Stroll, who's pretty much at the team because I think his father's pretty much owns the team. But also pretty much a brand new lineup for this team as well for season number 5 of AOR Oceania. We're having a look here at Chicane, firstly, who took part actually in season 4 as a reserve driver. Got 2 points throughout that whole season. Finished up best result in position 8 at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and also took part in Japan where he disconnected, technically probably DNF. But he was formerly VSR Chicane, was one of my former VSR colleagues, but I think he's been loaned out to Bossman Gaming from memory, I think it is. But you know, Chicane really, I think, shows the odd bit of pace now and again. Maybe certain tracks that might suit him. But it's probably been the same for pretty much any driver here. There might be some tracks that suit him more than others. But I don't know what to think of Chicane this year. He could be maybe fighting for maybe a few top 10s, you know, maybe an odd top 5. He probably has the pace there for top 5. He could maybe get himself up to the podium. That's for sure. He's got a new teammate as well this season, and I must say it is great to have this guy back in league racing for season number 5 of AOR Oceania. It is, of course, a legendary Poms to the Win 87. You could recognise that from the 87 number here on your screen. But he did take a break, obviously, from most leagues last season. Just pretty much needed a break from it, and I was hoping that he would come back in the future, and didn't take him long, have a season break, and he's back into the car. He obviously took part in season 3. Oh, I'll take that back to start with. He was in the commentary box for season 4 of AOR Oceania with AOR Charlie, but he did battle for the F2 title way back in season 3, but ended up finishing P3 with a couple of wins along the way and a few podiums as well. But I think from what I've got from Poms is that he's really enjoying this game quite a bit. He loves the cars, so you know, Poms may show a bit of pace this season. I don't think he's ever gotten a podium in the top tier mainly. I don't think he's in all the 4 previous seasons. I don't think he's ever got a podium, but can't remember exactly what his best ever result is in top tier, but wouldn't be surprised if it's near the top 5. But you could probably see this guy pushing for top 5s and maybe a few podiums. You never know. But race wins, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes for a race win somewhere throughout this season. Toro Rosso is what we're having a look here now for our 7th team overall. And of course, they are also another team got Honda Power engines underneath them. Of course, this car is driven in real life by Daniel Kvyat, who's of course back in the real life Formula 1. And of course, Alexander Albon, who, well, was driving for that team now, has moved up to Red Bull, and Pierre Gasly's coming back. But for this season, which was my former team actually for season 4, got a couple of brand new drivers, but brand new for this team. So we'll start off here with RBR 9707. Of course, he did take part in season 4, finished up in position 15 with 2 points to his name. Finished best ever result here of 9th in China. Did have he did miss quite a bit of the season last season, I should say, mainly because of a few internet issues. But he did take Red Bull up into position 8 in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, hopefully RBR's sort of rectified his internet issues, because in other leagues I've seen him race in, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's obviously raced in technically a couple of races last season, but this guy has genuine pace at a few tracks. Obviously, I think with Austria, he was last season as well. He was battling up there or thereabouts as well. But in the end, he DNF from out of that race. But yeah, don't be surprised if you see RBR around quite a few top 5 finishes along the way, maybe even a few podiums as well, and maybe even a pole. His teammate for this season is actually the first time we've ever had an F2 champion graduate from Oceania Xbox One side up into F1 tier. I talk about always AFK. She's obviously the first female taking part in the Oceania side of APAC sort of side of things. But don't get me wrong, she is quite a decent driver. She obviously won the championship last season in F2. Finishing up in position number 1 with 213 points, taking 7 wins, 2 seconds. Actually, she pretty much dominated the whole season, and the only other lowest race she had was position 9, I think, at Japan, I think it was. That was probably the only time where she was outside the top 2 throughout that whole season. Of course, she also win the Constructors' Championship with Williams, with Michi 950, and hopefully, even though she carried Michi throughout that whole season. Sorry, Michi, if you're watching this, but she is obviously decided to turn off a couple of her assists this season, make the jump up for the top tier, obviously using only the racing line. And yeah, from what I've seen so far with her pace, mainly in the TT time trials, she has got some quite genuine pace here. So, I mean, she could actually be fighting quite a few times, actually, in, top 5s throughout this whole season. Maybe a few podiums as well for her. And maybe an odd pole. She might favour some circuits compared to others along the way. So, yeah, keep an eye out for her this season. We're now getting to the nitty-gritty of our teams for this season of AOR Oceania. Having a now look at the Rocket Williams Racing team. The livery is sort of known as the toothpaste livery, but of course, its drivers got the young Brit in George Russell, of course, the F2 champion from 2018. Of course, the legendary story, of course, was Robert Kubica, making his way back into the team for this season. Probably not having a great season for him, but or maybe for George as well. But of course, it is Williams. They'll hopefully build back up. But these two drivers for this season was obviously formerly last season we had Death Bro and is that Matt driving for this team. But now it's pretty much just if you did watch season 4, it's pretty much just the McLaren boys swapping teams for this season, gone from McLaren to Williams for this season. So now we'll have a look at the legend that is Conrod Str8, or as he's well known as Stay Mayo. Thank you, Penske. I decided to leave that bit in there because I think he says it better compared to me. But yeah, well, what can you say about Conrod? He always loves racing whatsoever. Doesn't matter what tier you put him in. He'll always fight there or thereabouts, and whether it's just be in for the top 10 or whatnot, but he always puts up one hell of a fight. Trust me, I've raced him quite a bit, and yeah, he definitely fights hard. But season 4 stats, finished up in position 16 in the championship. Got 2 solitary points because he got 2 10th place finishes throughout the whole season at Austria and Brazil. His worst race throughout that season was position 15 back at China, but and also maybe a disconnect at Germany. And obviously, those 2 singular points didn't really matter much, unfortunately, for McLaren back then because they finished up in position 10. But, Conrod, he loves racing. What more could he say? But he'll easily fight for quite a few top 10s throughout this whole season. Maybe not at some tracks, but you'll definitely see this Williams car somewhere fighting for top 10s throughout this season. Of course, I did mention earlier that these 2 guys were formerly teammates at McLaren. Now, obviously, both of them have come across to Williams. Now we're having a look at the Kiwi who now lives in Oz, that is iKaiowas in car number 22. Of course, took part in the top tier for the first time last season. He has been racing in F2 took part in the first 3 seasons, but did inquire with him back in season 4 whether he wanted to make the jump up for this season. I think he said yes back then, so ended up finishing in position 17. Fortunately, didn't get a point throughout that whole season, but he did come close. I'll give him that. He did come close to coming in the points, finishing 11th twice throughout the whole season at both the A tracks, Australia and Austria. So, and also his worst track was China with a position 16. So it wasn't a great day back then for McLaren. And obviously I did mention earlier where they finished up in the top 10. But I could just sense that Kaiwas is so close to breaking into that top 10 throughout somewhere throughout this season. But obviously I did mention with Conrod, he'll be fighting top 10s. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Kaiwas in the top 10 somewhere throughout the season. Of course, it's a long calendar. You'd expect at least most of these drivers to maybe get in the points throughout this whole season. The 9th and final team taking part in AOR Oceania for this season is, of course, Alfa Romeo Racing, formerly known as Sauber, but obviously Alfa Romeo took over the team naming rights for this season. Of course, he's got the legendary Kimi Räikkönen in the team alongside him, the young Italian in Antonio Giovinazzi, first Italian since Jarno Trulli in the championship, I think, in the real-life Drivers' Championship. But we'll start off first with Is That Matt, of course, who took part in season 4 of AOR Oceania F1 tier. Obviously finished up in a position 11, just missing out on the top 10. Of course, you will remember he and myself were fighting it out for position 10 in the Drivers' Championship. Of course, I came out on top back then, but did pretty well that season, 17 points. His best result this season was a 6th at Japan, and obviously had the 1 DNF throughout the whole season in Bahrain. But I think it was another guy who was probably there or thereabouts, fighting for points throughout the whole season. Maybe he was a few outside the top 10, but I've not got it written down here. But also, like I mentioned back then with Death Bro, Williams were finished up in position 6 in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, Matt, I'm not really too sure what to think for this season. I mean, he'd probably say it himself. He'd be fighting for quite a few top 10 results throughout this whole season. I probably think he would like to break into the top 5 throughout the season as well, because it was that close to breaking into that for this last season, but this season I think he'll be really starting to push for that few top fives throughout this season. Last but not least, we get to yours truly. I mean, did you ever predict that I would ever be outside of an Alfa Romeo for this season of league racing? It was always in my mind, actually, for league racing this season, even though I do drive it for the F1 2019 career mode. By the way, if you haven't seen any episode of the episodes, go check them out. But yes, I am driving this little beauty for this season of for season 5 of AOR Oceania. Obviously, with myself, finished up in position 10 in the Drivers' Championship. I did mention that a bit earlier with 26 points. Somehow I still finished behind Berserk. I still don't know how. My best result was actually my best ever result in the F1 tier with position 5 in Brazil. Probably had it not been for that, probably would have been like the P6 I got at Belgium, which would have equaled my best result, which was here in Italy. I think it was a P6. But yeah, I only had the one DNF throughout that whole season. Where was it? I can't even remember where it was. Well, obviously, I missed the first race of the season last season, but yeah, and there was also the one disconnect which I had back at Germany. But actually, it was Britain. I'll take that back. It was Britain where I had the DNF. But obviously, taking Toro Rosso with my Plinier Montero and position 7 in the Constructors' Championship. Didn't mention that earlier, but yes, I'll be teaming up with Is That Matt for this season, and know a lot of people are going to be going nuts about me teaming up with Matt, thinking Matt's probably not a great driver, but never fear. I mean, I've driven with Matt back at SRL in season 3, I think it was, albeit it was only for a few races because he was having quite a few internet issues along the way. But yeah, it'd be great to reunite with Matt, and hopefully we'll be pushing for quite a few top 10s and definitely top 5s throughout this whole season. We'd love to get a decent result for Alfa Romeo in the Constructors' Championship as well. As in this point of recording, no one had picked the Renault seat, which means there is a couple of seats available at this Renault team, plus there's also one seat at Haas available. So there you go, guys and girls. That is your Season 5 preview of AOR Oceania. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I've not been critical of a few drivers, but it's great to be back racing in the top tier again, and I can't wait to drive this little beauty on your screen right now. The Alfa Romeo is going to be one heck of a season, that is for sure. But if you are looking forward to this new season, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big smash on that like button. As always, you can leave your comments down below who you think is going to be where throughout this whole season, like who you think is going to win the championship, who's going to win the Constructors, where do you think I'm going to finish throughout this whole season. Love to know your thoughts. You can leave them down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for plenty more AOR Oceania content on F1 2019. Got to get used to saying that now for this season. And as always, all my social media links will be down in the description as always. So if you if you're not following me on Twitter or Instagram or even my Facebook page, what the hell are you doing? Go check them out. The links are down below. But yeah, until the next time I will bring out a league racing video, which will hopefully not be too long in the near future, it is goodbye, and I'll see you all next time. I'm alone.